is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have my April wrap-up. So I read a total of 38 books in the month of April, which means I also read 9,638 pages. Now, that sounds like a whole lot, and it is. But I did do the 30 volumes in 30 days manga challenge, and so 30 of those were manga. So I only am going to talk about 8 books today because I actually did a separate manga wrap-up that I will leave linked down below for you guys. So if you want to see my thoughts on the manga, I'll leave it linked down below. This today will just be the 8 other books that I read in the month. However, I am going to give you all of the stats for everything first before we jump into the wrap-up. For the age category, I did read 2 middle grade, 2 adult, and 34 young adult. I think basically all of the manga I read, I did classify as young adult this month. For the format, I read 6 advanced reader copies or ARCs and 32 physical books. And then for the star ratings, I had 1 DNF, 2 2 stars, 1 2.5 stars, 1 3 stars, 4 3.5 stars, 5 4 stars, and 24 5 stars. Again, that is going to be a lot of manga in that rating because if I was just going through the 8 books I read that were like books, I have 1 DNF, 2 2 stars, 1 3 stars, 3 3.5 stars, and 1 5 star. Overall, if we're not counting the manga this month, I do feel like I did not have the best reading month. A lot of things, especially things I was looking forward to, just were not hitting it for me. So yeah, we are going to, like I said, jump into these ratings now, and I will be going from the lowest rated to my favorite of the month. So the book that I did DNF this month was Victories Greater Than Death by Charlie Jane Anders. I actually did a vlog where I was trying to catch up on some NetGalley arcs, and this is one of the ones that was in that vlog. So I will leave that link down below because you are going to get more in-depth thoughts in that video versus probably what I'm going to say now. However, I did not like this book. One thing this book really suffered from was a lack of information. Like, it felt like the very opposite of info dumping. So like in info dumping, I don't like that either, but in info dumping, you get a lot of information, a lot of world building, a lot of character development, like right in one specific part. Like the author's trying to give you all of it at once. And in this book, I read over half of this book. And for everything that we got here, we were just sort of thrown into the situation, and like we would get information, but it was never any backstory for it. So like at the very beginning of the book, we get thrown into Tina's life, and Tina is our main character. She's actually the clone of an alien captain from a fleet, and she knows that eventually she's gonna have some sort of beacon turn on in her chest, and she's going to get picked up by the alien fleet and go back and do that kind of thing. And so at the very beginning of this book, we get thrown into her life. She has a best friend, she has a mom, she has inside jokes with this best friend, she has like people that she doesn't like at school. Her and her friend go to a protest of some guy from their town because they have a backstory with him, but like the thing is, we never got to know why the inside jokes were funny or like what the jokes were. We never really got to see anything about like the people that like were sort of bullying. We don't know anything about like that character that they had backstory with because we didn't get to know the backstory. Then we eventually do get into the like space aspect, and because she is a clone of this alien captain, she does have some, not necessarily memories, but knowledge. And so on this spaceship, she's basically just going through and telling us all the things that she knows. Here's this alien from this species, and this part of their body does this one does this, like even people that we don't need to pay attention to. So a lot of it was just sort of thrown in there. We have a lot of aliens on this ship, but again, we have so much information from them. I think the author was trying too hard to make them diverse because there is a lot of different alien species, but again, we didn't need to know about everything. We didn't get more in-depth backstory for them either. One thing I will say is this book does have a sapphic romance in there. The romance wasn't very well developed, and from what I could see, I wasn't too sure it was going to be believable for me personally because by the time we got to the part where they're like, oh, I care about you, we didn't have substance to it. That was what was lacking for this book. I just really did not enjoy it. Okay, moving into our 2-star ratings. The first one I have here is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. This was a buddy read that I did in April with Stevie from Miro de Morte. I will leave her channel linked down below, although she's usually mostly over on Twitch. I guess I'll leave that link down below as well. We had a good time buddy reading this, like talking to each other about the different parts of this book, because it is split into like 6 parts or something like that, and we split them up evenly enough with the pages to read like a part or 2 every week. And so I really liked the experience of doing this with her. However, I really did not like this book. I really should have liked this more than I did, because I absolutely love sci-fi, so I was super excited to jump into this one. However, this one suffered from quite a few things that I just did not like. One thing I do think is that it is way too long. This, even though it does look like a chunker, the pages are very thin, so this is over 870 pages. And one thing that I really think could have been better for this was some editing to sort of split this up into books in a series. There were quite a few different like parts in here where like part 1 could have been one whole book if it was edited in such a way to do it as one book and then expanded upon. And then like part 2 and 3 I feel like could have been a book. There could have been like 4 to 5 books from this book alone if it would have been chopped at those parts and then expanded upon. And for me personally, I also really needed this to be expanded upon. I am a very big character reader, and I love characters. I did not connect to a single character in this book. Not even our main character. They just felt flat. They felt fake. They didn't feel real. They tried to have conversations with other characters, and when I say they, I mean a lot of the characters in this book tried to have conversations with other characters, but I just never felt a connection. So when anything happened to a character, or they got into a certain situation where I'm supposed to feel tense for them, it did not happen. This one also has a lot of info dumping, and I understand that he was trying to pack a lot of like sci-fi elements into this, but I just think it fell short because a lot of the pages would be, here is all the information. And one part that really is an example of that is the science in here. I'm sure he did a lot of research for the science of certain things, like faster than light speed travel and all this kind of stuff. However, there was just way too much more as like an info dumping. So like Kira, our main character, is a xenobiologist. However, she also seems to know a lot of different scientific aspects because like her fiance is a geologist, and I think they watched a movie one time where she was able to expand upon like this one type of science. I don't even remember the exact different sciences, but she would go through and explain to us all of the different science of this like one thing, and then this thing, and then this thing. And then as we get further into the book, there would be some science stuff that she doesn't know about, so she would instead find somebody else to then explain it all to her. And it got annoying, to say the least. I did not need all of those explanations for the science in this book, although like I said, I'm sure he did a lot of research for it. Those I think are my main aspects of why I did not like this book. One other thing though that just really bugged me, and I can't not state it in here, is it does appear that the only pronouns in his universe are he, she, and it. We have a race of aliens here that they call the jellies, that apparently are based on sea creatures from Earth, because I'm pretty sure they describe quite a few of them as having tentacles, and I think looking closer to squids than jellyfish. But then we also have people describing some of them as like crab-like with claws and that kind of thing. And one, that is a little bit weird. Like, why do we have aliens that have so many aspects related to sea creatures? I don't know. But also, why did we decide that the pronouns for these creatures, like we literally have one character who is one of these aliens, like tell them that their pronoun is it, or Kira talks to the alien and says that their pronoun is it. We never have any other characters with like they, them pronouns, and so it just felt like a choice to me personally that we have pronouns for she, we have pronouns for he, and then we have these aliens who are basically genderless or don't really have the same kinds of gender for the humans that are in this world, and we decided to go with it. It's just, it was a bad choice for me personally. I don't understand why we did that. The other 2 stars that I have is What Big Teeth by Rose Sabo. This is another one that I talked about in the NetGalley ARC vlog, and I really should have DNF'd it. I actually really should have DNF'd To Sleep in a Sea of Stars as well, but that was a buddy read. And it's not that it's necessarily horrible, but I do not get any answers from this book whatsoever. We go in not really knowing what's going on. We follow Eleanor, who had been sent to boarding school about 8 years earlier, and something happened at boarding school, so she is going back home to her family, and everybody's being a little bit cagey with her. She doesn't fully remember what happened previously. I don't actually know, 1, how old she is. I think she's a teenager of some sort, and 2, what time period this book is set in either. Which bugs me a little bit. Like, I really would have loved to know. This book was sort of billed as like Addams Family, the Munsters, that kind of thing, because we have a family that is comprised of like monsters. Again, I don't have like full names for the monsters. Like, I don't know exactly what they refer to themselves as, but we do have some characters that are similar to like werewolves, where they can transform into a wolf, that kind of thing. And part of it is a mystery of trying to figure out why she doesn't remember stuff that happened before. The further we get into this book, the less answers I have, the more questions I have. It turned really, really weird, but the writing style, because we are from Eleanor's point of view, is also very vague because she doesn't remember everything either, and I was just really, really confused. One other thing that I did not enjoy about this book is we do have an element that is sort of like age gap romance. It's not exactly a romance, but there are multiple characters where we have like teenage characters and a really older character, and you can just sort of tell maturity wise, very, very different. And in this family, apparently this is a very common thing, and I was very, very uncomfortable. Also, none of the characters have really any redeemable qualities, and like, I don't mind reading from gray characters, morally gray characters, but I could not find a single thing to like latch onto that I enjoyed about this book. Although I do feel like there might be some elements some people like, but it really just disappointed me. As for my 3 stars, I have Down Comes the Night by Allison Saft. This is the last book that I read for the ARC vlog, and like I said, I gave this 3 stars. This one had some really good points and then some really not so good for me points. This is like a gothic fantasy mystery type of book. I really did love the vibe in this book. It is very dark. We have our main character of Ren, who is a healer, and so she has healing magic, but she also uses some science with this as well. And when they combine the like magic side with the medicine technical side, I just really enjoyed that. The further we get into the book, the darker it gets with that kind of stuff. Like, it gets a little bit gruesome, and I just really enjoyed the vibe with it. With this book, however, though, I do feel like the characters were not quite written the right age. I forgot through most of my reading of this that Ren and Hal, the main guy character in this, are teenagers. I don't know the exact age for Ren, but Hal is stated as being 19, and I do believe he is older than she is. But for most of the book, I thought they were in their 20s. Early 20s maybe, but like 20s. They were just reading so much older to me, and so when I was reminded that he was 19 years old, I was like, wait, what? He's that young? Like, I just could not believe it. And then this has romance in it. I am usually a proponent of romance in books. I will take some romance in almost everything I read. This has a very high level of romance. However, I did not believe the romance. It felt very abrupt to me. Like, it happened very, very quickly, and it happened because Ren is a healer and Hal was her patient. And it felt like it came about more because of the circumstances of their relationship than falling in love with who each person was. So while we got later into the book, we did have, like I said, a lot of romance, and I do think Allison Saft was able to write like the romantic points and able to hit certain beats in the romance very well, but because I was not believing it from the get-go, it didn't quite do it for me. Moving into our 3.5 stars, the first one I have here is Thornwood by Leah Sipes. This one is a like retelling sort of Sleeping Beauty. And this one has to do with sisters. I think it's going to be the first in a series of fairy tales being retold focused on the like sister aspect. And like I said, this one I gave 3.5 stars. I really did enjoy certain aspects to this book. I liked the fact that we had a little sister in here. Like, our main character is the younger sister of Sleeping Beauty. It was a little bit predictable because it's a retelling sort of story, but I really did find the writing style to be quite good as well. I don't have as many details for this one because I read it so early in the month and it feels like this month took like 3 months to do. But from what I remember, the parts that I didn't like as much was that it felt a little bit too long. We did have a mystery aspect going on that eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I know where we're going with this. And I wasn't fully right, so I did appreciate the twists for it, but like the middle to end part felt like it dragged. I wasn't caring as much about what happened because I was just trying to get past that to the end. And then we get to the end and it felt very abrupt. Like it was all of a sudden over. I wished we would have had a little bit more wrap up, a little bit more resolution to the story, but I really did love the aspect of the sister and sibling stuff, so I probably will continue on in the series with whatever fairy tale comes next. My next 3.5 stars is The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chinani. This is actually a reread for me, and according to Goodreads, I had previously given this a 4 stars back when it came out in 2013. I read it as an ebook, so that's why I have the newer paperback. I got this last year because I wanted to continue the series, but I felt like I needed a reread. And I do still really enjoy this book. I like the fact that we have characters and they're going into this fairy tale world, and it's sort of flipping what they and we know about fairy tales on its head. The idea of good and evil, like it's not just based on what you look like, it's also based on how you act, and I liked that sort of aspect to this. I like how it takes a look at that. However, one thing that I really did not enjoy about this is that there are certain characteristics this author uses as evil that I don't think should be used that way. One is we have a character with albinism, and that whole like very light hair, very light skin, red eyes sort of stereotype is being used as evil here. And then we also have a girl who's fat. Like, that's literally it. Those are their characteristics. We have other characters with like green skin, spikes, those kind of things that would be more terrifying, more evil. But apparently albinism and being fat is in the same category. So I really did not appreciate that, even though I know there is a bigger message in here. And then that would not have taken it down to a 3.5 stars just by itself, even though I really did not like that aspect. Also the ending. The writing style throughout is very easy to read. However, the ending gets to a point where it just feels a little bit too quick. Like, I actually wasn't able to follow along with it, and I was getting confused as to who was going where and doing what, because they were just trying to fit so much into the end. I do still want to continue in this series. I have books 2 and 3 as well. Actually, book 2 was my TBR pick that we picked out and Presley picked for me for April, but I got so far behind with like fully reading stuff. I'm counting this one as the TBR pick because I did need to reread this in order to fully go into the second one. Still really, really fun. It just had some elements that obviously I wasn't that much into. And then our last 3.5 stars is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is a novel told in verse about a boy sort of coming of age and discovering himself and how he is gay, and then also finding drag. Now, this one, I think the biggest issue for me is that it had some really, really good elements. Like, there's some poetry in here that the character writes that I felt was very powerful, and I did like a lot of the at college figuring out drag and who he is sort of stuff. But this starts when he's like 6 years old, and it takes a good long while to get to him in college. Like, it actually takes about half of the book to get to that part. And so while I do think there are a lot of good elements in here, there were also elements of him talking about his home life and his relationship with his parents and his sister and I was okay with those, but it wasn't anything too profound for me, and I was just, I don't know, I think I was really expecting something different going in based on other people's reviews. Everything that I've ever really heard about this was novel and verse discovering drag. And like, we get there, but like the drag part doesn't actually even come until about 3/4 of the way through. So I was just, I think, expecting it to come quicker, even though it is a novel in verse. I only took like an hour and a bit to read this, but my expectations were definitely not what this book was. And then finally, the last book I have here is my only actual book 5-star read of the month, but it was freaking amazing, a new favorite, and that is going to be Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. This was a buddy read with Sasha from Well Read Half Dead. I will leave her link down below as well, and I freaking loved this book. This book takes the fantasy aspects and tropes that we love and just like enhances them or turns them on their head so much. Like, I freaking loved this. This follows a group of characters who are retired mercenaries. Like, they are quite old. They have families of their own, some of them even have children, and they're basically trying to get the band back together to save one of the mercenaries' daughters. And this book is so like character driven, found family, friendship driven, but it also has some really, really good action pieces. It has some very interesting fantasy elements, like some of the creatures and stuff in here are so weird and out of this world, but I absolutely loved it. It is very, very humorous, but also very emotional. I started tearing up like within the first couple chapters. Like, how is a book like this tearing at my heartstrings that much? It was so, so good. I also just really love the aspect that like they are a band of mercenaries, but in this world at this time, because they're retired now and they come back to the whole like mercenary gig trying to get the band back together, realizing that there are now younger bands of mercenaries acting like rock stars. Like, people treat them like a rock band with rock stars. Like, it's an element that I just loved so, so much. But yeah, I don't even know if I can necessarily pick a favorite character because they were all so, so well done. There were so many things in here that like this character would do this and it would like tug at my heartstrings, but then this character is like super, super funny and they have some banter between like these two to these two. Oh, I need to continue in this series. I know the second book is out, which is called Bloody Rose, that I definitely need to get to. I think it's more of a companion novel than like a direct sequel, but then I think on Goodreads there's a third book that's supposed to come out eventually. I don't know if it has a title or anything yet either, but this is a new favorite. Like, literally a new favorite. It was so, so good. Thank you, Sasha, one, for sending this to me for Christmas, but also buddy reading with me because I had such a good time and I loved it. Okay, and then that is everything that I had to talk about today. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye!